Arriving home on Friday looking forward to the weekend, I saw that my wife was not in her usual friendly mood, but rather obviously agitated as if she was preparing for a difficult discussion. I greeted her with concern, sensing immediately that something was wrong, as our children were supposed to be home. "I have something to tell you, you may have trouble understanding," she said hesitantly. "They are with their mother until Monday." I comforted her. I took her concerns into account and told her I know anyway. I will try to understand there is nothing wrong with it. But it may seem strange to you at first. Please try to understand where I am going. "Can you do this for me?" she said. "I'll try." And I replied, "I've thought about it for a long time. It may seem irrational at first." She said, "Go on." "I want to experiment with relationships with other men." "Wait. What?" I laughed, but her serious look made me laugh less. "Are you serious? Is this going to lead to a divorce?" No. I love you, I won't leave you, but I can't ignore this need. I refuse to betray you. So I need you to understand my desire, without feeling betrayed. Are you capable of it?" I was speechless for a moment before becoming furious and saying, "Understand? No, I can't firmly. I'll do it whether you agree or not. I hoped you would understand my point of view. I will be honest and take precautions." But she felt that I was detached. I couldn't process what she had said. I felt like I was betraying everything that held us together, even though she said it had nothing to do with us. I had no feelings. My wife of 17 years thought I would put up with her fascination with other men, John. I really need it. I want to experience something I've never experienced. I have only been with you. I've never explored." She said. I didn't say anything. My mind racing. I was surprised to see that she wanted to be with more than one man, and she thought I would put up with it, that I would let it go. It was something I couldn't understand. Veronica begged, "John, please." But the words stuck in my throat, my heart breaking. I got up and walked up the stairs to the empty shell of our shared haven. I was terrified and felt numb and distant. My mind broken. It had only taken a quarter of an hour for our marriage to fall apart. I sat on the bed, trying to gather my thoughts, knowing I had to get out, run from a woman who was willing to break our vows. No matter how I felt. She was back in our bedroom, sitting as she had been since she dropped her bombshell. I paused, feeling far from her as I stared at her. I asked, putting my hand on the doorknob, "Who are you?" Then I turned on my heel and walked away, John, where she said, her voice trailing off as I slammed the door. The effort guided my actions, these screams trailing behind me. I ran quickly past the neighboring houses. She caught up to me, but I couldn't face her even though she begged me to talk to her and declared her love for her. My marathon training had conditioned me to run faster than her even today. I can easily finish a marathon in under 3 hours. She disappeared 2 blocks behind a corner. I accelerated even more, going into what I called overdrive. I could keep this going forever, and maybe I will. Veronica gave water to the runners during a 10K race on our campus, and that's how our story began. Driven by the desire to catch up with her before she disappeared in the crowd, I gained the race that day. I was able to capture her before she disappeared into the crowd of spectators, admirers, and parents. We immediately hit it off. She hadn't finished her college, but she was working as a secretary to the dean of the business school. Her ability to is written language and pay attention to detail allowed her to secure a steady job as a graduate student. However, I double majored in computer science and electronics. Before we made it happen, we dated for 6 months, and it was great. She was a virgin, but she was good and fun. She seemed to have a natural inclination. The indicators were there, but she never really accepted it, at least not from what I noticed at the time. We got married 4 months after I graduated, and 14 months after our first meeting. Rai was a year older than me, 27, and me, 26. Yes, I repeat, even at 27, she was still a virgin. When Callie and John Jr., our children, were born, in the 9th and 10th years of our marriage, we flourished, as I began working as a computer systems engineer at Petter Ltv, a company specializing in cutting-edge military research and development. Roni continued to work as secretary to Dean Bill Schuler, owner of Peters Ltd., and my boss was a 60-year-old bachelor with an almost compulsive work ethic. Not only were Bill and I work colleagues, but we were also good friends. We had been married for 17 years at least. Or so I thought. And we had been very happy during that time. Apparently Roni had other ideas in recent months. Rennie had become serious. Nothing serious, just sporadic outbursts with me and more rarely with the children, which gave rise to some tense disagreements. His brusque behavior with the children was unbearable to me. I thought about the menopause. I knew a little about female biology, but not enough to worry about it. I always intended to take a closer interest in me, but I never had the time. I regret not having done so while walking. Now I have no idea where John went. Roberta. Bobby. He stormed out of the house and vanished after 5 p.m. On Friday. Veronica worries, that's why I called you. I'm very worried, Bobby. What should I do? Roberta, I could have been mistaken several times for my wife's twin. They both had pretty freckles on their faces, well-defined curves and hair. At 57, Roberta was about an inch taller. But other than that, they were nearly the same height. However, they had very different personalities. Bobby had a very diluted temperament, was reserved and less provoked at 40, still wasn't married. Roberta Masson asks, are we talking about our John? My brother? That's not like him. We had a disagreement and he stormed out. I tried to talk to him, but he wouldn't say, Veronica. Ronnie. We're going to find him. I don't know what happened between you, but if he left you and the kids, it must have been serious. Would you mind enlightening me a little? Asks Bobby. It's personal, says Veronica. And it wasn't at all. Something that justified him leaving us. I told him countless times that I loved him. Why doesn't he understand you waited too long to call me? He got a good head start, said Roberta sarcastically. I don't know. But once we find him, I'll find out the two sisters-in-law get along well. But Veronica is often considered a bit whimsical by the psychologist Roberta. Roberta, don't ask where he went. You said he was on foot. What was he wearing? He headed east towards Baxter. He was wearing a dark green t-shirt and a GAN. He also wore a Cubs baseball cap, I think, said Veronica. His coat, asks Roberta. No, he didn't have one, damn. Ronnie, it's cold outside. He left without a coat. He didn't take his car. He couldn't have gone far. We should be able to track him towards Baxter. Yes, he can't go that far. It's over 100 miles away, but he's going in that general direction. Okay? You stay here and keep the phone near you in case he calls. I have my cell phone. Keep me posted, said Roberta. I will, Veronica promises. Roberta Masson was 10 miles out of town, carefully navigating the slippery road when her phone called to answer. She stopped her car. Roberta said, Where is Baxter? Oh my God. Okay, and hung up that night. I was the only person staying in Baxter Prison, which is often fast in this town of 150 people. To be honest, I don't really care. The food was hot, and the comfortable cell cynically. I was telling myself that life couldn't get better. The steel door at the end of the hallway slammed open, and I heard it. Although I couldn't see who it was, the footsteps suggested someone was approaching me. It must be for me, since I was the only prisoner my sister started. Well, math a lot. Are you happy with yourself? I looked. Then, she called you. I said yes, but I was already on my way to get you. You better have a good reason to walk around the countryside without a coat. You know you have children in the bunk and a worried wife at home, Roberta said. Yes, that's true. I replied, the children maybe, but not Veronica. She didn't tip you off, isn't it, I guess? Not, Roberta said in wide eyes. She only mentioned that you had a fight, and you left. She said she begged you not to leave, nothing like half-truths to shift the blame onto someone else. Well, we had a disagreement, as she said, hard to avoid it, when she announces that she intends to go out with other men without caring what I think about it. And I specify, Roberta does not lose her calm. What did she say exactly? It is crystal clear. She made it clear that she intended to go out with other men whether I agreed or not, so I had to get out of there. Hence the confinement comforted. I explained the door to my cell was unlocked by the guard, who nods sympathetically. We approached the front reception area and we wandered around. You have been released on bail. However, you must return on Friday to plead your case, Morgan. The jollier said as he handed me a document which I chose not to read at that point. I nodded, realizing the wisdom of his advice. Pay the fine next Friday. It's just a delay. You will also have to cover the damages and interest, then everything will be settled. Although the fight was small, a table, a few chairs and a mirror were broken. I was taken away after the bartender. A rather attractive woman pointed me out as the culprit. I didn't fight because I was too drunk to think clearly. My sister questioned me on the ride home, which lasted over 2 hours. She told me her side of the story, and then sat down for a while. She treated me like a patient and committed to helping me whether I asked for it or not, before she began her analysis. Ladies, women go through changes that men have a hard time understanding, hormonal changes. That can be scary and make us feel insecure among other things. She said, I am not naive, Bobby, but other women don't go out and get involved with other men to get by, and I replied firmly, in fact, they do. 60% of men and 40% of women break up during marriage. This is one of the main reasons for the 52% divorce rate in this state. Veronica may be going through this phase and she needs your support. I wanted to talk, but she put her hands up to stop me. I'm not saying you have to allow her to be with other people, but you have to communicate with her. Be there and guide her to get out of the situation she's in. She needs you, and I'm afraid it's going to take time. Women our age need their partner to be a rock for them. Bobby, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to help Veronica get through this. But if she crosses that line, if another man touches her, it's over. No ifs, no buts, never. And let's be clear, if she disrespects me like that, I'll do everything I can to bring her and her lovers down. Bobby kills himself once more over. And I hated those moments because I always felt like she was assessing me. The conversation turned to lighter topics. She was amazed you walked 160 kilometers in 2 days. Yes, I did. I needed time to think. It's quite an achievement, especially considering the weather and road conditions at that time of year. What were you thinking? She shouted. She said something about my disdain for the roads and the weather. But I took it as a criticism of the way I thought about Veronica, myself, and our wedding. There were 3 weeks left until Christmas, and the party was going to be eventful. We hadn't even put up the tree. What was I going to find under it? I was angry. I still couldn't face going home. Pick me up at Petterer's, and I said, but it's Sunday, John. You have to. I can't go now. I still need to be alone. I'll go tomorrow. You can tell her I keep it up. She seems to understand. I'll talk to her. Assures her Bobby. She was really worried about you. I think she might delay her plans if she had any. Now. She knows how you feel, but don't act impulsively. Okay? I reassured her. I won't. I just need more time to think. I watched her leave after she dropped me off, and I headed to my workplace. Roberta thought Veronica might cancel her intentions, but I was worried about if she had AG yet, and if so, with whom. I thought it was a terrible thing to start losing trust in your wife. An incredible thing, Roberta said. Ronnie, he is afraid of and lose you without even acknowledging the welcome by taking off his coat and hanging it inside the front door. It's ridiculous irony. I told him he would never lose me. It's absurd when you told him you wanted to be with other men. Come on, Veronica. Any man would think the same thing. Roberta said. Veronica seemed upset. He told you. She realized of course he did it. I'm his sister, Roberta scolded her. How long did you think you could keep it a secret, suspecting that her sister-in-law wouldn't approve? Veronica defended herself by saying, it's just something I've always wanted to explore. Is it so wrong? If you do it, you'll lose it. You'll lose your children, and most people who love you, advised Roberta. You understand that Veronica can't meet his gaze. I hoped he would understand my need. It's been so long that it's been consuming me, Bobby. I don't know if I can stop. John has always understood me. He has to understand me this time too. I can't live without him. But I don't know if I can do what I need so much to do with this other one, said Veronica. I can try, but I could end up cheating on him completely. That's the real danger, and I know it. You have no idea of the power of this feeling, of this need that lives in me, she admits, Roberta answered. I think so. In fact, I know that I couldn't be faithful to just one. So I never got married. Why do you think that? But Veronica, you are married, and what you are suggesting, given that little fact, could ruin everything. If you don't pull yourself together. Soon. Warned Roberta. Veronica said, I guess you are right. As tears begin to flow, Roberta gets up and walks over to her, reassuring her, telling her everything will be fine. I will stay here tonight, and I will be there to help solve this problem when he comes back tomorrow. Thank you, Roberta. I am not sure I can handle it, especially now that he is angry. However, you must give up the idea of going out with other men. You must also persuade your husband that there is no reason to be afraid. It may be a very difficult task. suggested Roberta when Veronica heard the words "convince your husband." His sister-in-law didn't see the slight change in Veronica's expression, as she nodded and smirked slightly. It was at that moment that Veronica understood that she was unlikely to get her husband's approval, and that she had to choose between giving up her plans completely and making sure she could convince her husband that she had succeeded. They were two very different voices, but for now, she had to get him back. She really loved him more than anything. Veronica felt like she had a plan for the first time since he had slammed the door, and she wouldn't know well. Lace. Early I woke up on the office couch the next morning, a little stiff from the long walk and restless sleep. Although I was used to marathons, these military-style endurance walks were unusual for me. Especially in the last 10 years, I felt like I had won a victory. I hadn't lost it yet. I knew Callie and John Jr. would be at school when I pulled up to the house around 10 a.m. Veronica opened the door and hugged me, looking really happy to see me again. Oh my God, I was really anxious. Ignore everything I said. I made a mistake after a long conversation. Bobby helped me understand. My wife noticed the voice, full of relief. "I'm just so happy you're back," I said. Wah. Unable to shake the uncomfortable feeling that she had abruptly given up on something she had previously flatly refused to discuss. Bobby may have had everything planned for her, but something was wrong, something I couldn't put my finger on. "I hope you mean it." It all seemed too easy, too well done, until I finally understood I didn't trust her. What a dilemma. We went into the kitchen and found Bobby sitting at the table enjoying his omni-presented hello. "Bobby, are you here to check on his account?" I said jokingly. I made a joke, I guess. So she replied, "John, we had a real heart-to-heart talk. She understands. I hope you both can work it out, John." It was just a stupid female hallucination, I agreed. Because even though I respected Bobby and his observations, I wasn't prepared to take anything for granted. Not after the chaos of Friday. Bobby had neither seen nor heard what that I had seen. Veronica did everything she could to reassure me over the next few days, and I almost fell for Bobby's tricks, who told me that she was a stupid woman who was imagining things. Then on Thursday I was abruptly interrupted by a strange phone call that I chose not to tell Veronica about. Thinking about the call, I realized that the voice in the background had said something like, "Called cell phone." I rushed upstairs, hoping that my intuition was right. It was. Her cell phone was sitting on the dresser, checking the call history. I wrote down 6 unknown numbers. Luck smiled at me. I had a high-level security clearance from working in the military, which allowed me to trace her numbers easily. It would be illegal, but my boss had already done it to catch his cheating wife a year ago. I was about to do the same. It was not a faultless state. If I had proof, her cheating would cost her and her lover dearly. I felt empowered. She had come a long way in 6 days, and that night the intimacy was extraordinary, almost better than wonderful. I hoped I wouldn't have to give it up early, arriving at the lab. My goal was to capture Tim before he left for his field work. He stopped when I shouted at him as he passed by. "Very well." "John, how are you?" he replied. "Come into my workspace. I asked for your help, because I have a problem." We went in, and I stood sitting next to Tim after he took a chair. "Tim, do you remember the time Mr. Petterers asked you to do some research last year?" His curiosity was immediately aroused at N. "Not you too." "John," he cried, "I'm not sure, but I have reason to be worried. Could you help me?" "Yes, John, I can. But it's dangerous unless you're sure I am Tim." Yes, okay, I'll help you. But even with me, don't mention it. I'll contact you if I find anything. Is it acceptable?" "Yes. I'll wait. Just check over the next month and give me a perfect report if there's nothing, in case I've figured it out." He reassured. "His mobile phone contains a number I've collected. I don't know who it is. I specify it could be nothing or it could be everything. Excellent start. And if your name appears on the account, it is not against the law." He said. I insisted on this point. It was an unconvincing strategy, but it seemed to be my wife's only chance. She knew my technology and the resources I had, so I couldn't help but think she was stupid. Cheating would be pointless unless she could dispel my suspicions completely at home. Things calmed down. Veronica seemed satisfied. The kids were satisfied, and I pretended to be. Tim asked me to meet him at our usual place, and a week later my world fell apart. I got the addresses, I checked the numbers, he said straight away, and days apart I saw her in 2 different places. "John, I have pictures, videos, and sounds." "No doubt. Your wife is unfaithful to you?" "I apologize, John." "No problem. Help me." Please get more. Especially, more videos for her. I have plans. I will use any means necessary to undermine her and her associates. Complete, John. You should think about it. It was too easy. I am starting to think she might be setting some kind of trap. Keep that in mind. I can't see your wife being that careless anyway. I won't use any of this in court. I have other intentions. I said. He smiled. Tim was getting serious about spying. 3 weeks have passed. The team's research was pretty thorough, apart from their DNA. I knew everything there was to know about these people. And if I needed it, I could have it. All that was left was to choose the right time and the right approach. I had to talk to Bobby. We were watching the video in his office. My sister cried out, "Unbelievable, she really naked me too." What annoys me is that I know that I have sometimes been defeated. And I say, John, forget about revenge large, but revenge will only shame you later. Especially when your children start to form an opinion of you. 2. Don't give him any ammunition, she told me. Although I am in the grip of an inner conflict, I am aware that she is right. At the very least, the obvious retaliation were forbidden. However, that did not mean that I could not make the life of these lovers difficult. She would become very unpopular very quickly if I succeeded instead of 6. She had 5 lovers. I had accidentally called her cell phone using the emergency number I had. She had affairs 4 times with married men, all of whom had children under age. I could easily jeopardize the careers of 2 of them. One was a state legislator, and the other a clergyman. Veronica was in a serious situation. A woman's sexual desire had completely perverted her. I now understood why my sister had decided to stay alone for so long. It would have been advantageous for Veronica to do the same. I only thought of the children of this wealth, including my own. My children would stay with me without any questions being asked. Veronica would have unlimited visits, but I would forbid her from having a boyfriend near them. I would give her the house, but I will keep everything else. We were moving to a nice apartment near the new elementary school the kids were going to attend. A war was inevitable. My wife's face was blurred in the most damning footage by a tech-savvy friend, who also produced copies for the spouses and other important people in the lives of these 5 morons. To expose the politician and the priest, 2 additional copies were sent to a television station. I considered suing them, but I wanted to protect Veronica, to protect my kids, so I decided not to do it. I was sort of doing what Bobby had advised me to do. I figured that events like this would eventually disappear because of technology. It was becoming too easy to catch these idiots. I was early for work, the day that mattered most, glued to my computer screen. Everything was ready. Everything was ready. 4 marriages were likely to fail with a double click, and a man would end up singing hymns in an isolated monastery. I clicked twice. It was almost time for hell to erupt. I smiled. I felt like Joshua was standing outside the walls of Jericho, ready to watch them collapse. I told my platoon leader I was going home for the rest of the day. I wondered if Veronica would ever find out, or how long it would take. I put one of the videos in the player and turned on the television to the KO. All was to do was press a button, and she would see graphic footage of her in the scene. Many things had ended, including our marriage. I went up to upstairs to sleep a little. That's when I had an idea. I walked over to the phone. I took the notepad and wrote play video. An hour later I heard her car and the garage door. She had gone home. I waited at the top of the stairs, positioning myself discreetly. She stopped in front of the television and I noticed the note that was stuck to it. She approached the player, visibly worried. She passed out in less than a minute, but I couldn't watch the whole movie. The video was still playing. I went downstairs and turned off the computer. She came to. About 30 minutes after losing consciousness while waiting for her to recover, I sat on the sofa. Her eyes found mine as she looked around. Do you think you despise me now?" she mumbled, still bewildered. "Yes," I answered honestly. "No chance of redemption." None declared. I grant you the house. The children stay with me, all the rest. Action obligation savings will be mine if you don't contest this. I will let you save your dignity, but if you do, I will ensure your complete ruin." "John, I'm sorry, I don't know what to say. I thought I had to do it," she pleaded. "Veronica, I understand that you are sorry, but what you did is not forgivable. I told you it was too much, and now it's catching up with you and these men. They are taking a hard blow, so I don't expect him to call you anytime soon. They won't welcome you with open arms. It's sure I already planned to move. The kids will go there with Bobby after school today. You can see them anytime you want. but none of your male friends ever do. We communicate well with each other. She acquiesced to her credit. She had refrained from crying or giving an explanation. Until now I estimated the tears would fall 2 minutes after I left. So I left. The priest was reassigned, but I never knew. Married men have divorces that have devastated them, and the politician now sells used cars. Even though Veronica no longer lives with us, we were able to have a difficult conversation about why she doesn't work. Don't go with the dean and visit the children regularly. Veronica has appointments from time to time. I guess it's her office friends who organize it, but that's just a guess. She's over the idea of promiscuity. She's not interested in it anymore. She's still part of the family, so she'll be there for Christmas. She understands the seriousness of her mistake and doesn't talk about it with me. Oh, the destruction that sex can bring you.